as a man, Hans Asperger should be best forgotten, and the thing is, he would have been if it wasn't for the Tumblrites digging through history. All you are doing is memorialising his legacy for being a Nazi rather than for having this helpful research. All you are doing is dumping a load of shit on the people who honestly you would probably be friends with otherwise because you're in the same boat. Now, anyone who is banging this drum, I feel like has not been in the position that I have been in. So I met someone angry the other day. They were so determined to have their say. They bitched in a message, they bitched in the comments, and when I didn't come upon it, 'cause there's 100,000 of you now. Believe it or not, I get more than one message a day, but they blew up in my face. Said I was a nameless and a Nazi, but they couldn't quite say why, until finally said the angry one. Calling yourself an Aspie makes you a fucking Nazi. Bum bum, bum bum. Calling yourself an Aspie makes you a fucking Nazi. Bum bum, bum bum. You're ableist scum. Yeah, calling yourself an Aspie makes you a fucking Nazi. An ableist scum. Bum bum, bum bum. And in essence, that's why you're here. Yeah, so that's it in essence. And I wasn't going to make a video simply responding to one strange angry person, because fortunately we are past that in my YouTube journey. There are enough strange angry people out there that I can generally tell one random angry person from, you know, something that's worth responding to. And unfortunately this does seem like it is a small but possibly notable movement, probably spawning from Tumblr, and not the good bit of Tumblr that's entertaining and light-hearted and actually liberal, but the bit of Tumblr where problems are created for the sole purpose of banging your self-righteousness drum. And I'm literally going to link in the drop-down box the video I made some time back about self-righteousness and how the internet in general is addicted to self-righteousness and to having a cause to bang, usually something moral, and that I think is where this is coming from. But on behalf of myself as an Aspie, on behalf of all the other Aspie YouTubers I watch who prefer to use the term Aspie rather than autistic as I do, people like Yosemite Sam, who I love, like the Aspie World, who I think is really informative, I thought it was worth making this video to just respond to this whole thing. So if you are like I was, kind of like, why would calling yourself an Aspie have anything to do with the Nazis, and why is it ableist? I'm going to address the ableist thing later, but the Nazi thing, Hans Asperger, it turns out, apparently was a Nazi. So I'd like to address this. I've had some input from a friend, props to Matt for being so well informed on this and doing the research and all of that. So apparently at the time that Hans Asperger was a doctor in Nazi Germany, if you were a doctor of any kind, a licensed doctor, it was obligatory for you to become a member of the Nazi Party or you would be struck off. You would lose your job, you wouldn't be able to help people in any way. So you had to be a Nazi. You had to be a Nazi if you were a doctor. So So whether he chose to become a Nazi or not is kind of hard to know. But regarding Hans Asperger, when you say, God, why am I even explaining this? This is so stupid. But when you say that you have Asperger's syndrome, what you are saying is that you have a condition called Asperger's syndrome. You're not saying, I am a fan of Hans Asperger the Nazi. Now, it's just like, say, Down syndrome. I don't know anything about Down or Downs, whoever he was. Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. I'm sure I'm mangling that word, but again, I don't know who Ehlers and Danlos were. I don't know anything about them, and prior to this comment, I had no idea who Asperger was either. And the thing is, if these people hadn't gone around digging all of this information up, all we would have about Hans Asperger is Asperger's syndrome, his useful research, which has given people like me a way to know that we are not all the things that we were told we were when we were growing up. Because I was diagnosed round about 11 years ago, when Asperger's syndrome was still the official term. It was the term I was diagnosed with. At that point in my life, I was 25 years old. And for all of those 25 years, I had been told that I was lazy, that I was selfish, that I was an awful person, that I wasn't trying hard enough, and there was no reason why I found life so difficult, and that I just needed to get off my big, fat, lazy butt, stop being so selfish, stop being so lazy, and push myself harder, which I tried to do, to the point that it gave me a nervous breakdown and crippling anxiety, which has not gone away 11 years later, plus a buttload of eating disorders, self-harm, addictions. And all of those things have been vastly improved by having been diagnosed with Asperger's and having been told there's a reason for all of these things. You don't have to break your freaking brain and drive yourself to suicide because there's a reason why you have these things. And actually, you know what? It's normal. Only 13% of diagnosed autistic spectrum adults are in full-time employment. So to be doing a weird career choice like I am, it doesn't make me a lazy, selfish, awful person. It makes me a very normal Aspie. So I wanted to give you this example because this is just an example, just my example, just one tiny example of how absolutely vital, amazing, and life-saving Hans Asperger's research was. And the thing is, like, no, separate that from the man, right? Because I mean, who the hell gets diagnosed with a syndrome, and instead of looking up the symptoms and going, hang on, does this apply to me? Does this fit? Does this sound like me? Instead they go, hang on, who was this named after, and were they a good person? Should I call myself this syndrome name that I have because the guy who discovered it was a bad person? What a bizarre train of thought to have. And more than that, from what I know of Hans Asperger from my friend Matt's research, it turns out that Asperger was not actually one of the typical eugenicist arsehole Nazis. Not when it came to us, anyway. The Asperger people who he discovered and diagnosed, he tried to convince the Nazis that we were actually worthy of saving, that we could be productive members of society, and we should not be sent to the gas chambers, along with a lot of other mentally ill people, along with the poets, the gays, the Jews, albinos, conjoined twins, anyone else that seemed a little bit different, they sent off to the gas chambers because, as you probably know, the Nazis were obsessed with the perfect Aryan race and, you know, eugenics, breeding in good traits that were desirable, strong, attractive, blonde, blue-eyed people everywhere, nobody different at all, and yet Hans Asperger, having discovered people like me who are a little bit weird, don't really give the right eye contact, as I say, only have a 13% full-time employment record in the modern day, even with all the treatment we can get now, many people would look at that and go, these are defective people. Under Nazi regime, they should probably be sent to the gas chambers to perfect our perfect Aryan race, you know. And Hans Asperger actually tried to stop that happening in our case, at least. It seems that maybe he wasn't quite so perfect about other mental illnesses, but when it came to Asperger people, he did actually fight for our right to live, exist, and thrive as we wanted to. So that seems kind of not that awful as far as Asperger's goes. And as far as Asperger's goes, that is all, in my eyes, that is relevant about using the term Asperger's is the syndrome itself. And as far as the Nazis go, medical research that comes from the Nazis is not a rare thing, right? There is an enormous amount of the medical knowledge that we have today that has made enormous medical breakthroughs today that I'm afraid to tell you comes from Nazi experiments. The Nazis, and I'm not saying, oh, the Nazis were great, they gave us brilliant things here. This is pure fact, right? The Nazis, they didn't have any boundaries in what they were doing in the name of science. It's chilling, the things that they would do to people in the name of science, because they considered anybody different to be completely disposable.